This is commentary for lesson 22 in the workbook, What I See as a Form of Vengeance. This is a continuation of yesterday's lesson where we were getting in touch with the attack thoughts in our minds. And it continues in that on that line and suggests then that this is what we're projecting out into the world, our anger, and that's why we see a world that threatens us, that it's our thoughts that we project out, and uh, and then it seems as though we have to defend ourselves against the world. Um, and it's posing the question: how could there be a possibility of peace of mind with this attack and counterattack? I want to make a tie here to some of the text reading we're going to do around this workbook class, as learning to think along the lines of the text is part of what we're doing in the workbook. And the emphasis in that is that the course is training us to be miracle workers, and one of the first steps in that is to, as quickly as possible and as much as possible, to minimize our fear. And so it may seem as though, in fact can bring us into fear, to see that we have these anger thoughts and that they're more powerful than we thought. And but it's clear that it's saying unequivocally, like down here, that all that you fear does not exist. But the important thing I want to point out from the text is this idea that it's unequivocal that all that's happening, all that we think we have to defend ourselves from, comes from our minds, but that we're not expected to, just change our minds and then that fixes all the problems. In chapter 2, it talks about the value of the atonement does not lie in the manner in which it's expressed, or miracles. In fact, if it's used truly, it will inevitably be expressed in whatever way is most helpful to the receiver. This means that a miracle, to attain its full efficacy, must be expressed in a language that the recipient can understand without fear. So I'm making up the world, I'm making up my body, I'm making up my hunger, so whatever, I'm making up the situation. But if we just expect of ourselves, well, all I have to do is change my mind, at that point, it's saying it's just going to increase our fear. And that's the opposite of what it's trying to do, is to increase our level of communication with the Holy Spirit by reducing fear. And so we don't want to have the fear of, well, now I just need to change my mind. So the Course is pretty clear that whatever our needs are here, despite the fact that we're making them up, that they'll be met, because to have them unmet puts us in a more fearful state. Okay, so that's real key. It goes along with this idea. It says at the beginning of the text that the partially innocent are apt to be quite foolish. So anyways, but what this can do for us is to recognize that we have the ability, since what we're fearing out in the world and defending against is really coming from our own anger thoughts inside, and that's what we do have control over. There's another parallel lesson to this. It has a different emphasis, but it's lesson 170. It says, how thoroughly insane is the idea to defend from fear is to attack. For here is fear begotten, fed with blood to grow and swell and rage. Pretty dramatic language. And thus is fear protected, not escaped. And today we learn a lesson which can save you more delay and needless misery than you can possibly imagine. This is what the Course means by saving us time. You make what you defend against, and by your own defense against it, it's real and inescapable. And lay down your arms, and only then you to perceive it's false. Well, to lay down the arms there is this idea of giving up attack thoughts. That's the way out for us. And so The practice here, and it goes on, isn't it good news and happy to discover that we can do that? So that's what we want to expect, is this minimization of fear, and by recognizing that it's internal to us and it comes from our attack thoughts. So the practice is pretty simple, and it's got a metaphysical piece to it, with this idea that only what's eternal is real. That which doesn't last is not real. So there's where this focus. So the practice is to look about the world for 5 times today for a minute. And as you look at them, your eyes slowly from one object to another, from one body to another, say to yourself, I see only the perishable. I see nothing that will last. What I see is not real. So that's the idea of reality being the eternal, that which can't change. And so it's categorizing that what I see as a form of vengeance when I'm seeing that unreal. And then at the end of the practice period, ask yourself, is this the world I really want to see? Okay, that's it. Remember I should have mentioned that at the beginning maybe, but always remember to read the lesson yourself first before you look at the commentary. Okay, thanks.